welcome along to a brand new episode of the Supercup show here on SimNews.TV, where we take a look at the goings-on of the GPVWC Supercup, and, well, usually we talk about the race that's just gone by, but that just happened last episode. If you didn't see that, where have you been? So, well, this time around we're going to be taking a look at the season as a whole and having a couple of cheeky predictions, perhaps. I'm still Josh Anderson, though, here as always, and alongside me is Sam Jones, leader of the Disciplinary Committee for Supercup and formerly challenged team owner. Sam, great to have you back.
Yeah, hello Josh, hello guys, and I think this is a perfect opportunity now for us to really reflect on everything that we've seen so far, to just get a better understanding and really just see what perhaps could happen in the future.
Yeah, and where better to start, Sam, than our current team's championship leaders, Vedic Racing. Obviously, we're going to be covering all of the teams, and there is no better place to start than the leaders, Vedic Racing. They have had a stormer of a season this year. They are leading by 51 points to the next team down, and that really is down to the fantastic efforts of Dino Paolini and Wookie Hoxha this season.
Yeah, absolutely. They've really been a team that has just got it right with their driver pairing, because neither driver is leading the championship in terms of the Drivers' Championship, of course, but they're both doing so well and such good consistent point scorers. And let's not forget that Hoxha has also picked up a couple of wins along the way as well quite recently, that it's just pole vaulted them to the top of the table, and they're fully deserving of where they are right now, because the whole team really has done an excellent job.
Of course, both drivers are in the driving championship shout, absolutely. Both direct contenders here. Obviously, Dino's second in the championship on 228 points, and Wupke is fifth on 208. So they're both in 20 points of each other. Both could come out as a Supercup champion by the end of the year.
Yeah, there's no saying that either driver couldn't win it, and they've both been on such a good run of form. Paolini, one of the best and consistent drivers I've seen in Supercup over the last year and a half, really. And Hoxha, who just seems to, once he gets going, there's no real stopping him. And he's certainly got the ball rolling right now, so keep an eye on both of these guys.
What do you think it would mean for Vedic Racing if they won the team's championship here in Supercup? Because, of course, that would mean that if they decided to take it, the opportunity might present itself to go to Super League. And, well, that would mean they'd be the first of the Banacom teams, obviously Racing Team Shorten and Vedic Racing, run by the Shorten brothers, but the first of the two teams to get to Super League. And it would be interesting to see them up there for sure. Vedic as a Super League contender, because, of course, World Racing have withdrawn from the series, so that does leave a vacancy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect opportunity, and well, I think whoever wins this championship this year will be fully deserving of it, because it just shows that the drivers are putting a great deal of work, but also the team owner as well, because you really got to be dedicated and committed to pick the drivers that you want and go out there and chase the guys that you really want to get on board with you. That's exactly what's happened with this team, and it just seems to be a really good work ethic that they've got going on right now. And I think if they retain both drivers in Super League, if they got to Super League, I don't see any issue with that at all. I think they'd both do a fantastic job up there.
Yeah, I think Paolini and Hoxha's open wheel credentials have been well and truly established this season. Definitely going to be people interested in Super League drivers, perhaps them too. Of course, Wupke has Super League experience, Dino less so. But it would be interesting to see where they're going to end up, by the way. Mind you, we talk about them walking away with the title. This is only the half season, and Evolution Motorsports aren't that far behind on 385 points. They are still second in the standings with Tobias Politek and Dennis Jordan, who have both also taken wins this season. And Politek and Jordan also there and thereabouts in the drivers' standings. Politek's 8th and Jordan 5th. So Jordan, again, potential champion still.
Yeah, it could be. Could certainly be. That's not out of the question. We've seen how good Jordan has been. Again, he's another driver that's just lacking a race win right now, but incredibly consistent. Only one DNF to his name all season. He's just been there, been on the podium so many times, and a driver that was good last year, but he certainly just seems to have stepped it up another gear this year. And I think undoubtedly before the end of the season, he's going to pick up at least one race win, and if he keeps up this consistent form, there's no telling what he could possibly do.
Of course, Tobias Politek is a triple race winner already, though obviously consistency not quite as rock solid as Dennis Jordan's. Politek, though, did get 3 obviously wins, obviously in Canada, in Australia and Spain as well, so he's shown that he can get on the top step of that podium.
Yeah, he's a driver that I remember when he came in last year. It was a partial way through the season, and he just looked like he was really struggling with the league. Just couldn't get the finishes. Didn't look like he really had the racecraft for it. Just seemed to spin out and have a few crashes. And then all of a sudden, he managed to switch it on near the end of the season, and he took that momentum into this year as well, and started off the season fantastically well. Of course, picking up the win in the very first round, very first race as well. And like you said, he picked up a couple more race wins, but it does just seem to be that he either absolutely excels in a race, or he just seems to fall back a little bit. And maybe that's still a slight bit of inexperience from him there, and maybe he just needs another year at it before he becomes that all-rounded race driver that everyone's striving to be.
Yeah, it really has been evolution by name and evolution by nature for Evolution Motorsports. Obviously, they came in 2016, taking over the entry from Potala Racing. And, since then, they've really thrived. They've proven themselves to be a capable outfit. And, they're proving that maybe they could get where maybe Power couldn't. They could get the Super League.
Yeah, it's certainly been a step up compared to where Smile Power were. I think they were a team that were just struggling to really get the drivers in and get the results in as well. So no problem there with that change of hands at all. I think it's been only a positive step really in that direction. So we'll have to wait and see. They've definitely got the measure to be a team that should be in the top three at least. Whether they'll get up into Super League is a different matter, and I think that could be all down to how many spots are available for next year, and whether they can just claw back that 51-point deficit at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that Evolution are going to keep fighting throughout the entire rest of the season to get that Super League spot. So we'll have to see if they manage. Though they are under threat as well from Vedic Racing. This is by no means a two-horse race. 85 points back at the moment, but they do have Jason Muscat on board, who at points this season has led the Drivers' Championship and is still technically on course to be Drivers' Champion. If he can bring up the points gap that he currently has, of course he's sitting in 6th place at the moment on 207 points. But, of course, Muscat teamed with Dawe Tapper, an ever-present face of GPVWC, so a solid lineup there as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's not many drivers in Supercup that have the level of experience that Jason Muscat has to offer. So that's always a solid signing to have. And that's really been showing this season because Muscat started off the season so well. He's had a slight blip of form recently, a few things that weren't his fault, and a few things that maybe I'm sure he would have felt like he could have done better. But now's the best time really to have it because he could go into this summer break and hopefully he can recover himself and get back on track. Absolutely. In terms of Dawi Tapper, a great driver once again. I just feel that maybe there's more to come from him. I think he's a really talented guy, but I don't think we've seen the best of him this year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see some better results coming along in the second half of the season.
Yeah, they get a podium this season, Dawe Tapper as well, which for someone who was so good last year is a bit of a surprise, perhaps.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. He's definitely a guy that can get on the podium and even win a race or two if everything kind of falls his way and he's on form like he has been in the past. So whatever's going on this season, maybe he's had a bit of trouble getting the practice in, or maybe just not liking something on the car. But still a solid point scorer nonetheless, and a great addition to the team.
Yeah, of course, they're really having a great season. They've just been promoted up from Formula Challenge as well, so to do that and then now find themselves in third puts them in good stead for the future.
It does. It really does. It's always the first season is always the most difficult, and usually because of that, it's because of just trying to attract the drivers more than anything. But this year they've picked. Well, somehow I don't know how they managed to do it, but they got two fantastic drivers. So hats off. To the team there for doing that, and I'm sure Muscat and Tapper are both pleased with the team as well, and I'm sure there'll be more to come from those two because I think they're a great driver pairing.
Yeah, Muscat and Tapper seem to be getting on like a house on fire, and well, from just Muscat himself, the team is very, very closely associated with Malta Force GP. Really are Supercup stalwarts, Malta Force. Been around for a long time, never really taken the opportunity to promote a Super League when they've been given it though. The fourth in the standings this season with Alex Siebel, who currently leads the Drivers' Championship, of course, driving for them mostly. But Siebel's been joined in, by several teammates. For the most part, it has been Carlos Fernandez this season, joining him, but there have been other drivers too. Of course, Ride Kilk, most recently at Hungary, and Javier Mayano as well in the opening round at Australia. So, not really been entirely here, Fernandez, but he's had a decent season. But Siebel, of course, leading the championship, looking to be champion.
Yeah, Siebel's done an incredible job this year. He missed the first round, of course, but when he popped in Russia, he really just kind of showed up and showed everyone how it was done, picking up both wins there. And he's continued that form, picking up plenty more wins for the season to actually end up with 7 wins right now. And that's a lot of wins on your card at this point in the season. And if he replicates that in the second half of the season, I think he's definitely going to be the favourite for the championship. But of course, that all depends on him. I think it's going to have to be down to how committed he's going to be, if he can handle the pressure as well that's going to come his way as the season continues on and the championship looks ever closer to maybe his reach or someone else's. So it's really going to be interesting to see how he develops with that. In terms of Fernandez, definitely a driver who's had a few good showings this year, but struggled to finish races. I think that's one of his key areas to improve on, is just getting those points finishes, which would really help the team out to at least get into the top 3 of all the teams in Supercup. So maybe Fernandez, he just needs to go in just to make sure he can keep it calm and keep it cool and collected during the races.
Yeah, he's had 15 starts in Supercup this season and only finished 7 times, so perhaps not what he was looking for, Carlos Fernandez. He's just really perhaps not been his season. But for Malta Force, they've had this precedent of not taking the chance to go up to Super League when they've been offered it. And, well, obviously it's quite far ahead now to Vedic Racing, 141 points as it stands. Do you think they're probably, if they got the chance, do you think they'd decline again, or maybe would it be this time they go for it?
I think any time's a good time to go for it. I don't really see the point of being in the career ladder if you're not going to push up to the highest tier. I'm sure that should be every team's aim. And I don't think really they've got anything else to prove in Supercup now, because they've been in the league for so long, and we know how good the team is, how organised they are. The cars always look fantastic as well, and I'd love to see them actually going out there with the big teams, because in my eyes they are a big team as well. So if they can improve in the second half of the season and close what is quite a big points gap, and maybe take a top 3 or even first place, then definitely they should go for it if they have the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, and well, it would be very interesting to see. I'm not the Force Super League car, I'm sure, but well, they might be a bit far off the leaders at the moment, but it could still happen. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure another team that might have designs on Super League, maybe not this season, but next season, is TG Racing in 5th place at the moment. They've undergone a bit of a revival as well. Started out, obviously, from what was left of Centurion Grand Prix, went down to Formula Challenge, then to games pretty much straight back up into Super Cup. And, well, TG now 5th in the standings. Terence Grech, obviously, a one-time driver for the team, but mostly it has been Boy Milan and Edgar Reith. Both a very solid pairing there, with Milan getting 2 second places this season.
Yeah, it's a great improvement in form for the team after last season. I think they were very much a hit or miss team last season, and just really picking up points where they can. And but this year they've certainly looked much stronger. And Milan is another guy who is one of those really consistent drivers who you always know in qualifying, and for the majority of the time come to the race, he'll be in the top 10, and when he takes his chances, he can get a solid top 5 as well. He's even hit the podium a couple of times this year as well, and he's been thoroughly deserving of those podiums on both occasions. So certainly one of the guys that perhaps in the future could win a race or two, but he's always going to be one of those guys that'll bring the points home.
Yeah, it's not like he hasn't proven himself in GPVWC already. He is, of course, the final Atlantic Series Drivers' Champion before the series closed. And obviously, that is no mean feat in itself. That is pretty good going from Milan. Obviously, maybe just slightly different challenge, these Super Cup cars. But Edgar Reith, a bit more of a low-key driver. He's not had the same great results as Milan so far this season, but he's been there or thereabouts again. And very consistent as well. Just what the team need.
Yeah, just like last year as well, Ruiz was always a guy who would turn up for the majority of the races, and he'd pick up a good haul of points as well. And I think again it's just the same for this year. He's just a guy that you just know he'll get to the finish and get the points on the board more often than not, and nearly all the time. When he does do it, and a top 10 driver as well, often just sneaking in there and getting lucky on occasions as well, getting a bit of a switch for race two in the reverse grid, of course. So a guy that should be pleased with what he's done so far, and I hope to see more of the same come the second half of the season.
Do you think maybe in a couple of years' time, perhaps TG could go up to Super League? Because if they keep fielding driver lineups like this, they've surely got a chance.
Well, so far they've definitely improved on where they were last year, and that's only good to see. So I think another year in Supercup, we should see them being a solid top five team, and maybe challenging more for the higher rankings of first, second, or third next year. And after that, there's absolutely no question that if they continue this improvement in form and increase of the team rate, then they certainly should be a team that considers Super League in a couple of years.
Yeah, definite consideration. And, well, another team that might have a similar sort of long-term strategy to TG is Epic Racing, of course, in 6th place at the moment. Jeffrey Fournier, Rob Mason, both drivers for that team. A very consistent and stable lineup. Both drivers have made every single race this season, which is always a good start. And Jeffrey Fournier at Austria and Monaco, he was absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah, great performance there by Fournier, and that was the point in the season where we were really talking about Fournier as the serious title contender. He's fallen back a little bit now, but certainly without a question, he's still in the race for the title. Just had a poor round just as we went into the summer break at Hungary, and that certainly probably knocked him back a bit. But if he could get back to that level of form that he found, which was just perfect, there was no other way describing it. He was that good around Australia and Monaco, both very different racetracks, and yet it was like the same guy was there at the same time, just perfect in every way. And I just think if he can find that again, then he's going to be a real guy to challenge Siebel and the others for the title this year.
Yeah, Fournier third in the standings on 216 points, you know, ahead of Jordan on the fact that he's got 3 race wins this season. He really is very talented, and he's proving that. Rob Mason's not half bad, though. He's had a good season too.
Yeah, of course, another guy who's come up from Formula Challenge along with the team this year. Of course, they've also come up from Formula Challenge themselves. And definitely a driver who I was thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure what he's going to be able to do in Super Cup. Is he going to be good enough to get into the point scoring positions, or is he just going to cave in under the increased competition? But he's certainly surprised me, and he's done an excellent job so far, picking up good amount of points and getting some really good finishes and a couple of races, taking his opportunities when they've come to him. And I think this is, of course, a good learning experience for him, and he's only going to get better as the season progresses. So I can't wait to see what he's going to do in the latter half of the year.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how Mason progresses, and obviously the ever impressive Jeffrey Fournier as well for Epic. Do you see them perhaps catching up to Malta Force and maybe overhauling them for 4th place if these good results continue?
I don't see why not. Fournier certainly has got the chance of getting a lot more points in the bag, and I'm sure he's going to pick up a few more race wins as the season goes on. And like I said, Mason, I think he's just going to be a guy that gets better and better. So if he gets to the level of Ruiz and Milan, who are consistent top 10 scorers, there's absolutely no reason why Epic can't get themselves into the top 5.
Yeah, really no reason why they can't if that's the case, and well, maybe they will, we'll have to see. And now we move on to the 7th place team in the standings, Vedic Racing team. Of course, they just missed out in the Team Championship last year in Formula Challenge, and perhaps as a result of that, just missed out on Super League, because Madcap went straight up to Super League, whereas Vedic went to Super Cup, and they've been fighting it out here this year. And they are 7th in the standings, obviously, so maybe not as high as they wanted, especially considering that they had the 1st and 2nd places of last year's Formula Challenge, Stefan Riot and James Johnson. Johnson especially has had a nightmare season.
Yeah, it really has been the team that's disappointed me more than anything this year. I really had high hopes of Deltec, and like you said, it's such an exciting driver pair, and Stefan Rualt is just a great all-round driver. I've seen him in many different series, and he can really get the job done. I am really surprised that he hasn't picked up a race win yet this year, but I think he will. I know what his ability is like. I really think he can get a win sooner rather than later, and just help him out in the championship as well a little bit in his own personal battle, because I think he's just falling off the leaders at the moment, and I think if he doesn't start picking up the points soon, then he might really struggle to stay with them. In terms of James Johnson, I don't really know what's happened, to be honest with you, because there was no stopping the guy last year. He was just scarily fast, and I just remember other drivers of a similar level to him talking about through the corners. He was imperious, just so good. And this year it's a completely different story. He just seems to struggle for pace at every single race in qualifying, and he's just not picked up the points at all. He's not even been the best driver for the second. Sorry, not even been the second best driver for the team this year. So I don't know what's happened, but I hope he can find a way of sorting it out, because he certainly deserves to be a top 5 driver.
It's a kind of phrase, perhaps it's just a case of Gagzala syndrome, because we saw this from Emmanuel Gagzala when he won the Formula Challenge Drivers' Championship in 2013. He went up to Supercup the following year with Storm, and it was a massive drop-off in performance. He got it back though the next year. Now he's in Super League winning races there, so maybe it's just an acclimatization issue for Johnson. Maybe he just needs a bit more time to get used to these Formula Renault cars, and maybe in 2018, if he stays on Mageltech, it'll be a force of nature again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just seems to be that he can't really get a run going, because he's not attending a lot of the races either. So that's not going to help him. That's not going to help his motivation or just understanding of the cars. And I think if he can't do the whole season, then they really need to look for a full-time driver that can, because this is getting to the business end of the season now. We're in the going into the second half, and you want to get as many points as you can. And if they want to try and get into the top 5, then they do need 2 consistent drivers.
Yeah, I think they just need a bit of consistency down to keep that 7th place at the moment, and they are coming under increasing threat from Vedic Racing behind. Of course, they've only had 3 drivers this season, Antonio Hanovic obviously being the main driver, and then Matthias Canapino starting the season, but then being replaced by Tom Vandervoort. So, you know, obviously stuff going on there with Canapino and then being replaced by Vandervoort. Vandervoort's had a good return.
Yeah, he has. He initially struggled a little bit, but he's certainly been getting there, and he's now starting to pick up the points. It's not quite the same Vandervoort that we used to see a couple of seasons ago, but I think give him a bit of time, he's going to get there, because he is a very good driver. That's, again, another team, Drake, that just need 2 drivers constantly picking up the points if they want to progress this season. Otherwise, they are going to finish roughly where they are.
Hrlanovic, though, really has been an interesting quantity, because he's definitely a top 5 driver when he's on form. But in his second half of the first half of the season, in the second quarter of the season, he's kind of tailed off a bit. He's been languishing around near the top 10 rather than the top 5.
Yeah, definitely. Ever since Austria, he's struggled, hasn't he? He's, of course, even got a race win this year, so that shows the kind of driver that he is. And I know sometimes he seems to struggle with some of his hardware issues and things like that, which is never going to help any driver. But whatever's happened, it's not stopping him from racing, because he's still turning up for all the races. But definitely not got the same form that he had earlier on, and maybe this summer break is exactly what he needs, just to refresh and get back going again for the second half of the season.
Yeah, perhaps so. And obviously, Hrlanovic, Vandervoort both going to be coming out this season with Drake. Obviously, you know, moved up the career ladder to Supercup, maybe making a charge to Super League once again. But 8th place isn't really going to help them at the moment.
No, it's not at the moment. They're not doing bad where they are. It's not a disaster for them, but certainly I think with the drivers that they've got as well, I think they can aim a little bit higher, and could be peering into the top 5, which would be an excellent result for them, really, if they could just start to get some of the points on the board a bit more consistently.
Yeah, perhaps they just need a bit more consistent points going from Van der Voort, which I'm sure he can pull out. And, well, they'll be pulling away from Racing Team Shorten, perhaps, who are in ninth behind them, with the brothers Potala, Edward and Gerard, doing pretty much all of this season so far. But Gerard serving a race ban at Hungary meant that Argenis Riera, the Venezuelan, came in for them and got a decent result, ninth. But yeah, brothers Potala for the most part, and they've been very close to each other this season.
Yeah, they're incredibly similar in terms of lap time, in terms of their pace, and often I see them on track together as well. And they've actually been a great asset for Racing Team Schroten this year because, of course, Schroten really struggled last year in Supercup, and if it wasn't for quite a few teams not re-entering for this year, then I think they might have been moved back down to Formula Challenge. But nonetheless, they didn't, and I think they've done a good job this year and shown that they are actually deserving of a Supercup place. Both the Potalas have done an excellent job. We'll just skirt over what happened in Monaco. That was definitely a dark part of the season for Gerard Potala, and I'm sure one that he won't want to repeat in the future.
Yeah, obviously, I think everybody obviously learned from some mistakes, and Potala, will come back stronger after the season break, but yeah, they've had a solid, if not entirely successful season, RTS, and, well, definitely picking up where they need to pick up, really.
Yeah, just getting the points. I think this is the season for them after, like I said, the struggles last year. They just needed to start getting a good haul of points early on in the season, and that is exactly what the two drivers did. They just picked up points consistently, and they've maybe had a few issues here or there in a couple of races, but it seemed to still be drivers that can pick up the points race by race, and we'll see in the future what happens in the second half of the season. But it's not bad, is it? If you've got two brothers in the same team, then there's probably going to be a bit of teamwork there for the majority of the time.
Yeah, definitely going to be some teamwork going on at least. So, there is an advantage to that. And, well, I wish I could be in a team with such a close connection, but perhaps not. If it's going to happen to me, at least it happens to RTS. And, well, getting the points you talk about, that's something Satellite Racing could hope to do. They have not had the best season in the world. They started out, obviously, they came into the start of this season and they announced this new partnership with K1 Speed, and they announced, obviously, the driver lineup. They were going to have TJ Holsheimer, they were going to have Matt Strand and Josh Chin as well. That materialised without the latter of those three drivers, and then Holsheimer left. So they were left to fill that with Wright Kilk, then Ryan Walker, then Erhan Jadowski as a result. They're in 10th place this season. Strand has been getting some good results, but the fact that his teammates haven't really been showing up has hindered the team.
Yeah, it's a real strange one, isn't it? It's a team that's been in a top five for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and really has been a key team that everyone recognises instantly when you look at the Supercup Championship. And whatever's happened this year, it does seem to be a case of again a team struggling to find a consistent driver lineup. They've, of course, like you said, they've got a Strand who's there just about every race doing a solid job, but he really needs a guy alongside him as well, not just to help pick up the points, but also to work with him during the practicing and getting the setup all sorted out. And that just seems to be where the team is struggling this year. And this is going to be, unfortunately for Satellite, one of their seasons to forget, and one they'll hopefully want to bounce back from next year.
Strand has a lot of experience in Supercup as well, so, perhaps just not being his season, but, this is strange for a good team like Satellite to have this sort of problem. You'd imagine they'd have this covered.
Yeah, I don't quite know what's happened really. Of course, they've had Sven de Vries for a few years now, haven't they? And he's no longer in the league this year, so that was a huge blow to begin with. And maybe it was just a case that they haven't been able to quite fill that void, and the team are a bit lost without him. He's been a key figure of that team, and it is a shame. But I think they've obviously got some good guys in that team, and I think it's just going to be a matter of time before they get back up there again.
Yeah, perhaps so. It is a shame to see them so far down the order, of course, and they are duking it out with Hinds Motorsport pretty much in a direct duel at the moment, just 4 points in it. At the moment, obviously, Hinds Motorsport being promoted from Formula Challenge this year, they've got a bit of driver trouble of their own, but they seem to have covered it now, at the moment at least, as of Hungary, drivers being Wesley Stefano and Chris Shepard, and, well, before that, they're Jordan Weeks and Sandeep Chode as well, who's been with them until about Canada. Then he seems to have dropped off again, and Alexander Vardwander coming in well. So they've had an alright season to make a debut with. Not terrible, but not brilliant.
Yeah, it's certainly it's a team, isn't it, Hins, that they only really had half a season's worth of experience. Didn't really have that much to do in Formula Challenge. Came in halfway through the year and just kind of picked up the points and here or there, and just gradually moved up the standings last year. And then they just got shot up into Supercup with that half season experience. So it was always going to be a questionable team as to how they would cope with such little history. But yeah, they've not actually done that bad. Choda's been a great asset to the team, a great points driver, really. He's done an excellent job in Formula Challenge in the past, and had races here or there in other tiers of the career ladder as well. And he's just continued that on this year with some good, excellent results. And then, of course, picking up a podium in Britain a couple of rounds ago, that was a huge help for the team, and certainly just gave him a big boost in the points.
Of course, not really far off Satellite now, and to beat such a high-profile team in the very first season in Supercup would be quite the achievement, you imagine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about a top 10 for them if they can, and that'd be a good effort for them. You know, you don't want to finish last in your first season, and they're on course for not doing that. So I don't see why they can't just push on a little bit more, get a top 10, and they can really celebrate it.
Yeah, you know, a top 10 for Hins in the very first season, that would be a great achievement. I don't think the same luxury is going to be available to Cosmos Psyche, though, unfortunately. They are still struggling on this season so far. They had such a good start. They're 12th at the moment, but they started well with a very solid lineup of Andres Pestovs and Ben Willis, both former Vedic Racing drivers, but both left the team, unfortunately, after about a quarter of the way of the season through. So they had to draft in several replacements, including Gerrit de Vries, Mike Quint, and Thomas André Harry Sower as well. But, you know, at the last round in Hungary, they didn't have any cars there at all.
Yeah, that's a real concern that they didn't have anyone to field at all, and that's never good for a team. And hopefully that they've now had a few weeks to try and find someone else. By the time it gets to the next round, they'll be okay. But at least they've got points on the board at the moment, and of course that podium, like you said, has been a great benefit to the team and just helped make them look a bit more healthy, because you don't want to be a team that can't score points at all. And I think if they can just get a couple of consistent drivers, they could just survive the rest of this season.
With the likes of Mike Quint as well, he got that podium as well, and that 11th place, so, really helping out. So, perhaps they're going to be taking the strategy. We've talked about this before on the Supercup show, Sam, but perhaps taking the strategy that will be trying drivers out this season, giving them the 4 races, perhaps with a view to signing them in 2018.
Yeah, I think maybe it is a bit of planning for the future, but they do just need to get a couple of drivers at least, who are going to turn up for enough rounds, and whether that's going to be any of the current drivers that they've got, or if they need to find 2 more drivers, I don't know. But certainly next year is on the cards as well, but they just got to survive this year first, which I think they could do as long as they keep turning up.
It's been a bit of a trial by fire for them, really, hasn't it? Because they came in Formula Challenge about a quarter way through the season in 2014. They've had 2 good seasons since, never really broken the massive top echelons, but they've been promoted to the Supercup based on consistency, and they've tried to bring that this year, but they need results as well as to field cars.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? That results are one thing, but fielding cars is the other thing, and that's exactly what the league are looking for. But I'm sure if they just keep their heads down and just get on with the work, then the league will at least see that and accept them and reward them for what they've done.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they get on in the rest of the season. And of course, bringing up the rear of the field is ST Racing at the moment. 18 points scored this season, and another team that again has struggled to field drivers to Supercup races. And well, for ST it's a bit more serious. They've been on a bit of a slow decline for quite a few years now, and you get the feeling, Sam, maybe with the losses that we've had in Super League this year, maybe less so, but there's a good chance with the amount of competition in Formula Challenge that ST could find themselves relegated.
Yeah, they've had a couple of seasons already at the bottom of the Super Cup, haven't they? And it just seems to be yet another season of that. That's going to be three in the road that they've finished in the bottom two if everything continues as it is, and that's not good. Um, what could be their saving grace is if, again, like last year, not all the teams reapply for Super Cup. We have no idea whether that's going to happen at the moment. Most teams still look pretty healthy, fielding drivers, at least one driver per race, and for the majority of them, getting both drivers in quite consistently. So whether that's going to happen or not, we'll have to wait it out for the next few months. But I think if they do finish bottom, they're really going to struggle to make a case for staying in Super Cup, since it is a third season of quite much of the similar kind of scenario.
Yeah, maybe going to find it a bit difficult to launch a reapplication bid, and well, it would be a shame to lose them from the Supercup field, of course. But it's been a case of they've been here for a long time now, and obviously showing, it doesn't seem like they can field. It's not like they have a problem all the time with fielding drivers. It's the results that have been lacking.
Yeah, they just seem to be a team that they get their points when they can, don't they? They just occasionally get a point or two, get inside that top 15, but then nothing else much more. And those kind of points aren't really going to help you. The problem is that the two teams above them have both picked up a podium this year, and that's a huge haul of points that equates to pretty much what they've got for the whole season. So that's really where they're struggling and where they're going to maybe, I don't know, can they do something like that? They're going to have to really sign someone big if they want to pull that one off for a race.
Yeah, they will need to, and maybe they will. We don't know yet. The season break isn't quite over yet, but it will be obviously soon with the German Grand Prix coming up on the 26th of July. But before we end this show, we're going to have a couple of little cheeky little predictions, aren't we, Sam? We're going to have a little crack at calling who we think is going to win this season as the drivers and teams champions. So, having considered everything that we've considered so far in this show, Sam, who are you going for?
That's a real difficult one. It really is, because this has got to be one of the closest seasons that we've had in quite a while. Like last year, Lars Brugman looked so good, and I really couldn't see him losing it. Really, he was that strong last year, and it's been the case for quite a few years now as well. It's always been great racing Super Cup, but not always been quite as close at the front. We've had Ruud Heestebeek in the past that's gone and won the season, and before that, it looked like De Vries was going to walk it easily until he didn't turn up for the final few rounds of the season and allow Philip Pushka to take it. So it's really is one of the more difficult ones this year, but just the way that Alex Siebel's been going about his racing recently, and one telling thing is that the past 3 rounds, he's won each of the race 1 races, and that's an incredible amount of consistency, and it just shows the quality of the driver. And I think that's what's going to take it this year, is that Siebel's just got that little bit extra in the bag. He's just got that little bit more quality that will result in him being able to snatch his title from those around him.
Yeah, that is good. That is a good shout, that Alex Siebel, of course, our current championship leader. And who do you think is going to win the teams then? Maybe is that a little bit more straightforward for you?
No, I was avoiding this one because this is an even harder one. It really is actually quite a difficult one to predict, because, of course, the top 2 teams are both teams that have got great, consistent drivers, but maybe not quite the absolute best drivers. But then Siebel, who I think will take the championship, he doesn't quite seem to have a consistent driver next to him who's picking up similar sort of results, which really makes me think that Malta Force probably aren't going to take the title in the constructors this year. So for me, it's actually going to come down to between Mizurik and Evolution, and I actually think out of all of this that it's going to come down. I hate to put this on him, but I think this is going to come down to how consistent and how good Politics is in the second half this year. If he can, get that form that we've seen him in, where he's a top 5 driver, then I think Evolution will take it. But if he struggles to get into the top 5, I should say, more often than not, then I think it'll be Mazurek.
Interesting choice then from Sam Jones, obviously saying Vedic Racing to win the team's championship. I'm going to have to agree on you on that front, mate. I really do think Vedic are going to come out as the champions. Though I don't agree with you on your driver's championship choice. I think by the end of this season, we'll all be singing La Marseillaise for Jeffrey Fournier. I think he's going to walk out as the champion, and he's going to produce a great second half of the season. I think the season break's what he needs, and he's going to walk out of here as the champion.
I like it. That's not a bad shout, especially considering the kind of form that we saw a few rounds ago. And he certainly is a top 5 driver more often than not. So not bad choice there. This is going to be one of the biggest predictions we've ever made. Usually it's just for a race and usually everyone's forgotten it by the end of the race. But this one's all going to be out there on the YouTube, isn't it? So we're going to be stuck to this one now. And I really can't wait to find out whether we're right or not at the end of the season, because this has definitely been the best Supercup season that I've had the chance to view for quite a few years now, just in terms of the actual title race.
Yeah, it has been a great season so far, really close title race, and you are not going to want to miss the rest of it. Of course, the next 9 rounds coming up, of course, with the German Grand Prix coming up first, and then the rest of the Supercup season. Who is going to walk out as champion? I don't think any of us knows, but what we do know is that the German Grand Prix is going to be a corker, as is every other race in Supercup in 2017. But until the German Grand Prix, and indeed the German episode of the Supercup Show, I've been Josh Randerson, he's been Sam Jones, and for me, him, and everyone at SimNews.TV, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the German recap show. Bye for now.